Thanks, Program Director, and good morning, well, good afternoon to all of you. How was lunch? It was good, eh? I don't know whether it's better to speak before or after lunch. Because like if you speak just before lunch, everyone's agitated because they want to go eat, and then you eat too much, and then now everyone's a little bit tired. So either way, I don't know if we'll get the necessary attention span, but I suppose because you said I'm talking about money, maybe there might be like a little bit of attention spend on this presentation. So as Victor said, my name is Thabo Magomola. I work for the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. I don't know where the fish are, but we try to help in terms of reducing the plastics that affect the fish. That's about the greatest context that I can put it in terms of the work that we do. I head up the policy unit, so our responsibility is to look at policies, legislations, and regulations that affect the waste sector, the chemicals and waste sector. And we also have a particular focus on circular economy in terms of the policy and our government's position on circular economy. My team was also responsible for the development of the National Waste Strategy for 2020, which is framed around circular economy, and industrial symbiosis is a major component of that strategy document. Further to that, we've been working with the NCPC since its inception. It's a sister agency to us, and they've been very supportive of us in terms of the program that I'm going to present to you today. And without further ado, I'm worried that Victor is going to shake his head too soon and scratch his head, and I haven't started. So this is the presentation outline. I'm going to give you a brief background. Try to present to you the legislative context in terms of why we believe that we're well positioned to implement a program such as this. A bit on the program description, how we fared in terms of its implementation thus far, and then our plan going forward in terms of the 2022 implementation. So I think many of us will know that the waste sector is recognized as one that provides numerous opportunities in terms of value recovery, beneficiation, job creation, and economic development. Some of the speakers before have spoken extensively to this. We know that the number of opportunities that reside in terms of recycling chemicals and waste while minimizing environmental impacts. So our view is to look at accelerating waste recycling, waste to energy, and waste beneficiation. And our further view is, as a contributor to circular economy, if all is implemented correctly and we have the level of cooperation that we're looking for in terms of all of our sector partners, there is a potential of creating up to 150,000 jobs by 2024. But to do that, we need to implement a number of the key levers that are placed in the NWMS. Some of them include the strengthening local government collection and cleanups, separation of waste streams, and infrastructure investment, which is key to be able to really implement these waste programs. The integration of waste pickers into our systems, and the industry plans, the EPR plans with producers, with the associated investment, transformation, and job creation targets. So in terms of the Recycling Enterprise Support Program, it finds a place in terms of our legislation, in terms of Section 6 of the Waste Act, and it's also linked to Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 of the National Waste Management Strategy, which speaks to minimizing general waste streams from landfill, advancing waste as a resource, and waste collection, including separation at source. And some of the other key levers that support the program that is also espoused in the NWMS is circular economy, the empowerment of previously disadvantaged individuals, job creation and SME development, including cooperatives, and extended user responsibility. So how the program works, and its intention is to support the emergence of micro enterprises and new entrants in the circular economy. It's implemented by our department on a yearly basis through a call for proposals. We offer grant funding, so it's not a loan that's repayable, of up to 5 million rand per qualifying enterprise. And I keep stressing that it's not just for SMEs, it's also for cooperatives in the circular economy. The funding support is primarily targeted at waste management related machinery and equipment, as well as infrastructure, but we do allow in commercial vehicles, but we do allow for a small portion, really not more than 30%, that could be used for overheads in terms of startup costs, salaries, etc., but really not more than 6 months. We just felt when we implemented the program, we benchmarked with the number of programs that have been implemented by sister agencies, including the DTI. But what we noticed was many of them just wanted 100% investment into infrastructure. And we know that when you're starting up an enterprise, you do need a little bit of support in terms of just a float to get the company going. So as I said, that the grants are awarded on a competitive basis through a solicitation of proposals. So we've run 2 rounds of the program to date, and we've awarded about 107 million rand to date, and we've disbursed. Well, this is a bit old. We've disbursed in terms of paid out a bit more than that. I think we've paid out, 100 million by now. Most of our beneficiaries have been predominantly women and are youth owned. And through the further implementation over the next 2 years, we believe we could create approximately 579 jobs and 84,000 tons of waste that could be diverted from landfill. We look at primarily all the problematic waste streams that were mentioned in the previous presentations. Our intention is to really support startups to become large enterprises that move from just waste collection more to beneficiation, processing, and alternative waste treatment. But our understanding is that typically people that operate in this space usually start at the area of waste collection, sorting, baling, which is why you'll notice many of the enterprises that we've supported have been operating in that space. But we have supported 2 construction and demolition waste recycling projects, 3 material recovery facilities, 1 laminated glass recycling facility, 5 plastic processing production facilities, so that's plastic pelletization as well as injection molding, 1 recycled school bag facility, and that's a video I'll show you a bit later, and 3 e-waste processing facilities, 2 waste energy plants, and 1 waste recovery park. Looking at the geographical representation of our projects, you'll see that a number of them have been in the Gauteng province, but the intention of the program is to try to find as much parity as we can across the 9 provinces. So our hope is going forward that we will receive more qualifying proposals from the provinces that have not been as well represented, the likes of Mpumalanga, Eastern Cape. To date, we haven't actually received the qualifying proposals from the Free State, so I'm looking forward to tomorrow's presentation in the Northern Cape. So in terms of implementing the program for the 2022 financial year, we've been conducting roadshows since late last year, since September last year. We plan to issue our advert. We're hoping our advert will go out in the month of June, after which we'll host an online briefing session and then receive the proposals. If all goes well, in July 2022 is when we will institute the evaluation process, which has a 2-stage evaluation process, and I'll take you through that. We'll finalize our shortlist and we'll prepare a recommendation report, which will go to our top committee. The approval of the qualifying beneficiaries will ultimately be signed off by our Director General, after which we can start issuing the award letters and effect the disbursements, which we effect in 2 tranches. The first tranche is up to 50% because we understand that many of the enterprises, some are only at startup phase and are not actually operating, need a substantial amount to actually make the down payments of the deposits for some of the machinery, some of which we hope that they can buy outright so they can get the ball rolling. But before we make the balance of payments, we usually we do a site inspection. We make sure that the initial purchases were actually made. We have all the proof of purchases. We physically go on site to make sure that we can actually look. I mean, the whole verification process is important to us because we are using taxpayers' money. And if we're happy with that process, then we can accept the final claim. So now the 2022 proposals, the slide that I prepared is also similar to what we do in terms of our awareness workshops. And the reason why we do that is we just want to give, what we've noticed is in the last 2 cycles, we've had maybe more than 500 proposals, but we've only been able to support about 25 enterprises. And what we've seen is sometimes the quality of the business plans or proposals don't meet our criteria. And we feel that the more we can engage with stakeholders and walk them through the process, the better chance they have of qualifying. So in terms of the bid documentation, We do require a business plan, a detailed business plan, and we'll go through the details of what needs to be in that business plan, a company profile, company registration documents that confirm that the entity is either a cooperative or an SMME, tax clearance certificate, and a bank form that just shows that there's a business account that has been opened. The documents must be centrally submitted at the closing date, 2 hard copies, so that is at our offices at Environment House in Pretoria. So we have a 3-stage process. The first is the pre-compliance stage, so all of the applicants must receive 100% compliance to be considered for stage 2. The stage 2 is the mandatory requirements, so another 100% compliance is required in order to be considered for stage 3, and then the final stage is the evaluation criteria, and qualifying applicants must score at least 75% out of 100 to be shortlisted. So just going into the key compliance requirements, which again, this is where the 100%, that's not the alarm that I had set, but I'm sure I'm close to the 15 minutes. So we do have an application form which is already available that we require the applicant to fill out. It just helps us with the registration process. The tax clearance, I just need to double check whether that's necessarily pre-compliance anymore, because there was a Treasury note that if you don't have the tax clearance certificate, if we receive the PIN, that is okay, because we can always verify that the company is in good tax standing. We also, in terms of the mandatory requirements, we need to have evidence of your valid CIPC documents that just prove that the company is either a CC, a PTY, or a cooperative. And then we also require evidence that the applicant holds a fixed physical address and primarily operates in the province and locality of their domicile. That's for us to be able to get that parity I was speaking about in terms of the different provinces. But it's also for us to get a sense that the enterprise or the entity has started to at least identify an area to work. You know, if you send us the details of your apartment or flat, it doesn't really work for us, because when we launch the money, if you are successful, then we don't have to wait for you now to go and try to identify a place that you're going to operate. We would at least want that you have at least a draft lease agreement, just to be able to demonstrate that even if you're not able to afford the lease or whatever, you have initiated talks with a potential landlord, etc., so you can start operating as soon as possible. We do require as well that the applicant is a holder of a business account. We need to have a business account to send the money in. And what's important here is the business account needs to be in the name of the applicant, not in the name of the individual who's the director of the business. It needs to be in the name of the business or the enterprise itself. I mentioned also a company profile, just so that we can see that the entity is either already operating in the space or has an intention to operate in the space. Because sometimes we get applicants that are like catering companies, or they just saw a tender out and then they apply, and then you just want to be able to sift through that. We do allow for joint ventures, but it's provided that their respective partners establish a new registered entity, and we need evidence of this as well. And that evidence could be a joint venture agreement signed by both parties. Now, going into the important part. So, as I said, those first 2 stages, you need to score 100. You need to present all of that evidence for you to make it to the final stage where you get evaluated. And while it looks like 19 minutes, okay. While it looks as though it's quite easy to meet that criteria, many of the companies fail. We usually have a 50% fall off before we get to the evaluation criteria stage. So in terms of the evaluation criteria, it's out of 100. The first 50 points is about the suitability of the project. So the first assessment area is evidence or demonstration that you have sustainable access to waste materials, which needs to be evidenced by copies of letters of intent or contracts signed by the waste holders. This content of evidence must reflect the intention of the waste holder to provide feedstock. So it's not a binding commitment by the waste holder, but we just want to see that the entity has started to, because people like to say, well, there's so much waste around, there's lots of waste, but it's not that easy to have sustainable access to waste, also depending on the products that you plan to process out of that waste stream. So we need to see that. This is all about sustainability. The second is now looking at from a demand side, right? So you're going to process the waste into products or recyclable goods. So we need to see possible evidence of buyers for the recycled and processed goods. Again, this needs to be evidence in terms of copies of letters of intent, tax invoices from buyers, or contracts from the customer base. So and how we've rated it is that the more letters of intent that you could show, then there's a point scoring. So the maximum points you can score on the one side is 15, and on this side is another 15. So if you get, say, 5 letters of supply as from the waste generators and another 5 in terms of demand from possible buyers, then you're scoring 30 out of the 100. So you're almost at the 75. The next area of assessment is looking at the approximate volume of waste that could be diverted from landfill, and we've got a point scoring process as well, but the maximum amount of points there is 10. Labor intensity, so that's job creation, so we need to have an indication of the number of jobs that would be created, and we don't suggest you just throw the highest number of jobs so that you can score the 10 points, because we will look at the financials. We have a way of looking at on the back end to see that it actually correlates to what your needs are and the size of the business. And then the balance of the points, the other 50 points, is actually the quality of the business plan. So what we've done, we've made it easy, or we thought it was easy for you. We've allocated points to each of the subheadings. So our recommendation is that you actually put those subheadings as we're recommending. An executive summary, which could score 2 points, a company description, which could score a maximum of 3 points, a management summary, a business model, which is quite an important element, which should score up to 10 points, a marketing plan for 5 points, an operational plan for 5 points, an organizational plan for 5 points, and then a budget and financial projections for 10 points. And then finally, if the enterprise or individual members have at least like a year's experience in waste management, they could score up to another 5 points. So that is how we get to the potential 100 points. And again, if you score 75, you could qualify for this funding of a maximum of 5 million rand. I'm almost done. I just thought I would share with you one of our first beneficiaries. This is a young black female-owned company that I was operating from Rustenburg, and they recycle school bags out of particular plastic materials, and then resell, or through sponsors, resell those school bags to school kids. They've done very well for themselves. I don't want to speak too much about it. I think the video will speak to itself.
There are a lot of problems that we have in society, and we always think the answer, lies in money, or it lies in something that is far from us. When you look at the issue of plastic pollution, looking at that and saying, there's so much potential, the potential for it to become more than what it is. I don't even see plastic anymore. I see our material, I see our textile, I see color. I started a company with a friend of mine, Rhea, and what we do is repurpose school bags. So this is an upcycled, solar-powered school bag.
It was a school assignment of hers, so she took plastics and she just made a regular bag out of it, very, very simple.
Being able to recognize the value in this could actually be something that could help so many kids out there, that could create so many jobs, and then say, I'm actually going to pick it up and hopefully make something worthwhile and meaningful. Yes, I'm very business-minded, but I have so much empathy for people and how business can actually be in that space, and profit not being a driver but coming as a consequence of actually doing good in the community.
Having a business that from the onset sets to make a social change.
The bag is made from 20 plastic bags that we upcycle and turn into a purpose textile. And we take that and we cut it into a pattern. And then we take that and we sew it up into a neat, durable backpack. On each bag, we've got a reflective material, and then we've got the solar panel. While a child is walking to school, the solar panel is charging, and when a child gets back home, you can simply take it out, put it on the dryer, and then they can use it as a light to study. Looking at what we've managed to accomplish with pretty much no marketing budget, and reach the likes of Bill Gates and not having to pay him to tweet about us, but doing that through work that matters, I think that is huge. For someone such as Bill Gates to recognize us firstly as creative was huge. It validated that as a creative, you don't need maths or to be a scientist to make an impact in the world. Through thinking differently, that can be recognized as something noteworthy. When you start something, you need to have a clear vision of what it is that you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. And having moved into a new factory, not looking at the space itself, but looking at what it means to the people I work with.
The ability to create jobs and being able to assist them in that transition from where they are right now up until where they would like to be and even further.
We've managed to pretty much employ 8 people out of waste. Everything has value. Everything should have a purpose. We live in a world where we need a new generation of young people telling a different story for what is possible. How long are we going to wait for people to realize our greatness?
Thank you.